When I think of Formula Ford, probably the biggest thing that comes to me is just the number of friendships and the competition and the learning. There was a lot of learning and good friends made out of it.
Wally Storey, tell us how you got involved in Formula Ford in the first place.
Probably catching the train to Warwick Farm and watching motor races out there. And wanted to do a bit of racing. I had a hot rod road car, and a bloke called Dave Moore said to me, "What are you mucking around with a road car for? Why don't you get a racing car?" And Formula Ford's a common thing. Why don't you do it? So I actually bought a car off Dick Carter, an old Lynx, which was a car Kevin Bartlett raced. And I sort of had a bit of a day out and that, managed to bugger it. And then from there, Elwyn and I started building the car. We started out building the car out of those bits, ended up using the steering rack and the front uprights on it, and made the rest. So we started building cars, and it took us about 2 years, I suppose. Then I drove the thing, and we sort of learned as we went.
So you're very well known as an engineer, not just in Formula 4 but in supercars as well, but you were a pretty hotshot driver back in the day as well.
Yeah, I won a few. I think I won 8 out of 10 on the trot at one time. I ran second in the National Championship in 1979, and I won a couple of Coke Series and a few things like that. Yeah, I mean, I was one of a fair few blokes that were pretty good at the time. There was a fair few good blokes around.
Tell us about the cars that you were involved in as a constructor. Obviously there was Elwyn, but you were involved in other cars as well in terms of you had a hand in the way they were designed and built?
Mostly I was involved in Elwyn's. Another friend of mine, a fellow called Bruce Connelly, we're all good mates. Like, I went to Czech with Elwyn, and Bruce Connelly's brother was the best man at our wedding, so I've probably known him longer than nearly anybody. And we thought he was a bloke with talent. You know, in a group of people, there's always some blokes that just got it. John Smith was another bloke who had it, you know, like you taught me, like I used to hunt with a bow and arrow at the time, and you teach me to use a bow and arrow and they pick it up. And Bruce Connelly was another one of those blokes. He was very good. He was like B-class, B-grade motocross rider, but he wanted to do something different. And Elwyn, for whatever reason, couldn't build him a car, was too busy, didn't want to, who knows. So Bruce ended up, we bought a Galloway that was half complete. So we finished it off. You know, it was like the basic car was there, but we had to finish off a lot of stuff, radiators and that sort of jam. So we ended up building a Galloway that Harry had done a fair bit of, and we ended up winning a championship with that.
What's your favourite memory from your time in Formula 4? There must be a cracking story that you've got there.
I can tell you a lot of funny stories that probably wouldn't go down that well. Me personally, I had a race with Richard Davison very early on in my life, and I was explaining this to a young bloke the other day that the level of racing you do is not necessarily the most satisfaction that you get out of it. It's a bit like people who run, who don't necessarily win, but they run because they have a personal best. And your personal best at the time is probably more satisfying in some ways. So I had a race at Sandown with Richard Davison for about 10th or something. And I beat him by half a nose just by slipstreaming. And it was just something that stuck in my mind because it's one of my most successful races. I thought it out, played the game to win it, and I ended up winning it. And I thought, there's more to this. But I learned a lot from a lot of people who were very good at slipstreaming, like John Smith and that. So we had a good exchange of information at that stage. So, yeah, I don't know. It's hard to choose. I had a lot of good times. Winning wasn't necessarily, I mean, winning was what we all do it for. And obviously it's satisfying, but I've got a lot of good friends out of Formula Ford, from both over in the West and South Australia and over in the eastern side. And I still know most of those people today. Like my young bloke always says, I wish I could have done it when you did it. Like he won a state championship in a Formula Ford. He's a pretty good steerer, probably better than I was. But he's never experienced the same camaraderie and stuff that I did, because it's just changed. Now you turn up, pay money, rent a car off somebody and drive it. In those days we actually went down to Blackwoods, bought a pile of tubing, got your welding gear out and made it. It's a whole different ball game.